what JP was saying is that how can you give value to someone when you don't even understand value? Because you can't give something that you don't have or you don't understand, right? Sorry, I got
That's a train of thought.
Can you just repeat that?
So essentially what I'm getting from the chats we're having, right? Because we were describing and having a conversation and exploring it rather. Exploring these two gentlemen, right? JP portrayed one gentleman who wants to overpower and wants to be seen and wants to be recognized, etc., etc., etc. And then you are painting a different guy as well that is very comfortable in themselves. So we're exploring these guys, and it seems like at the end of it all, it sounds like the biggest antidote or one of the most important criterias, rather, right, is to try and build value from within.
Yeah, keyword value. Thank you. So I think, again, just touching on what JP said, I think also we need to understand what value is. Because
as men or just generally?
As a people, right? Because I think we as men, we might embody it, but we wouldn't know. Because when you look at how we offer ourselves to our significant others, you want it's almost the level of sacrifice. For us, what we value is the level of sacrifice we give to the other person, right? And I think we need to just, as people, educate ourselves on what is value, because value has almost been so materialized that it's what can you do for me? What value am I getting? What are you going to buy me? Where are you going to take me?
Right? Who's asking these questions?
No, I'm just saying how value now.
No, I get you. No, I do get you. I do get you. But it's a point. So I hear you, Spudam, and I'm not. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is because if we have different interpretations of what value is, and it's lost us for this long, then it means that somebody is responding to that for it to continue happening. So that person who's saying, "What can you give me? What can you do for me? What are you bringing here?" They communicating a different type of value that they're needing. So who's asking those questions?
Very good question. Very good question. So if I can come back to my point, is to say we need to actually, I would say, communicate value according to ourselves. If you're a guy, there needs to be a conversation that you're having. It's either within your household or whatever, to communicate, also to manage the expectations around value and describe what your value is. And this is what I'm offering, and according to me, this is value according to me, right? And I think those are the things that you can almost describe that money can't really buy. I think that, according to me, that is value.
Can I interject there? Think back on your childhood. What do you remember more? What your parents would tell you what is value, or what you see them valuing and showing value?
Very, very good point.
Because before you answer, it is very evident that there are many households without a father, whether it be the mother has literally went out and just had a baby daddy and they never actually got together, they weren't really dating, and now they had the child. Or the couple were together, something happened, and now they split. Or in the unfortunate events where it has happened, the husband passed away. What the mother or the person that brought that child up, how they acted towards men, how they portrayed men for themselves, how they were acting is what now was instilled into that young one. Whether it was a son or a daughter, they are now going to be either looking for it or attracting it, because that is what they are known. That's what's known to them. It's not about the words that they say. What do you value? Or I value this because of 1, 2, 3. Humans remember and recognize through action. if they see a man, whether it be the biological father or not, showing value to the mother by, yes, we're fighting, but I'll always come back, I'll always help, I'll always provide. Yes, we're fighting, but after the fight, I'll come back and then say sorry, or go to the child and say, listen, I know you heard us and saw us doing 1, 2, 3 that you might not understand or like, and then start discussing it. It's not the discussion that makes that person know what value is.
It's a principle.
It's that they see he's coming through and he's explaining. It's not just, I'm fighting now, the child must deal with it on their own. I'm not going to explain to them. They see that there is that communication, and the line of communication is open because they brought it forward. So they see that. Now, if that couple had a son, he's going to see, I might have an argument, but I need to go back and I need to have a clearer discussion about it on a level head, because he saw it being acted out.
Your Honor, JP, just to also touch on what you're saying now. Now I'll personalize it, right? So with my parents were God-fearing people, and they led a certain lifestyle that you could almost pick up from each and every one of us as kids that grew up in that household, right? Because my dad was a disciplinarian. I think my dad only smacked me. I think I can count the amount of times that my dad smacked me in this finger. And my mom, on the other hand, was the one who was smacking us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if my dad were to say something or to reprimand me, you know that guilt that you get where you feel like you've disappointed this person by the words that they said, or he would ask you, why did you do what you did, and you don't have an answer, and then he tells you what you did he educates you about the consequences, the long-term consequences, because you might think that I was just fooling around as a kid. But then he tells you how that would percolate into bigger things of life, and you'd almost sit and look at your life and think of how much you've disappointed this person, and you never wanted to disappoint this person, because I always idolized my dad, because I wanted to grow up and be like this man, always wearing suits, one of the most respected people in the community. When there would be like something that's being discussed, you know, where we come from in the villages, there's a chief and there's a dispute where there's a deadlock. Now this one doesn't want to back down. They would call this guy to come there and offer his expertise. I would say he was a conversation strategist, because he always came up with the right things to say at the right time for the right people. Like, you know, when they speak about salt, when the salt is absent, even in cake, the cake doesn't taste nice. So he was just that person who always made a difference, and where he was offering value. He did have resources in abundance, but he was not really using his resources to get the value. It was those things that he would do free of charge, like offer his time, sacrifice his time, offer assistance where needed. So I grew up looking at this guy and thinking, you know what, I would really like to lead a life that looks very pure. I can't say his life was pure, because he had his shortcomings, but the way he lived his life, he tried to protect his wife from knowing a lot of bad habits that he was participating in, which resulted in the kids that now we started seeing kids that look like us, you know. So, but that life did not come to his house and interfere in his house. He had those kids, he looked after those kids, and people didn't know about those kids. But when he came to his house, he kept his household together. Where his brothers and his sisters, he even took their kids because maybe some of them were not doing well in their jobs. He would take on those kids, raise them in our household, our cousins. Like, there were a lot of people that grew up at our house where even our uncles, I thought were my brothers, for example. And then these people would matriculate and then they would leave. Some, because their parents did not also value school, they found it very difficult to grow up in that household because there was discipline. There was a time to come back home and in the evening. You come back from school, you go to the river to fetch water. At around 4, we go herd the cows. So there was always something to do. During the holidays, we plant in the garden. This time we're going to the fields to help the guys who are looking after the crops and all of that. So there was always something to do and it had to be done at a specific time. If he says, tomorrow you're going to work in the fields between 8 and 4, you needed to go there because if you didn't go, and then he finds out that you didn't go, it's not him beating you that will make you feel bad. It's him pointing it out, the importance of ignoring instructions from a parent. So those things, those values, like JP is saying, I don't remember the toys that my dad bought me or the clothes, but I remember the values that he instilled in me through the way he lived his life.
Now, gents, we have now grown, and we're old men now. We have homes. Etc.
Well, Chief, you're older than everyone, Chief.
We're all men now, and we all come from different backgrounds, right? You guys have painted a nice picture around how it's very important to model a certain way of living and make sure that you facilitate that type of space for your child so that they grow up to be the man that obviously you're hoping they will be, someone who's moving towards responsibility. Someone who's looking towards contributing positively in their household and in the community, right? There are a lot of gentlemen that might have not experienced that. You've highlighted some spaces where a lot of individuals might have not. And that obviously plays out now that we're old, right? Is it too late for those gents because they haven't had that? Because you can't go back, is it?
You can't go back. I will say it depends on the person. I'll use my brother as an example. So he's 1 year and 25 days older than me. We grew up in the same household. We ate the same food, went to the same schools. But we live completely different lives. Some people, when they find out that he's actually my brother, even in high school, when people found out that we were brothers, they wouldn't believe it. We look similar, but we act completely different. And as a result, he unfortunately delved into substance abuse and things like that. And he went to, I think, 3-4 rehabs previously, but never stuck it out. Either he checked himself out or whatever, I don't know the full stories behind it. And that's just how he was and how he is, or how he was. He was always needed to be the center of attention, be the main man. But now recently, something happened in his mentality of, I need to be better, I need to do better. And he now checked himself in. And now, from what I heard from the report today, he is a completely different person. He's now sticking it out through the rehab. He's pushing through to be a better person and actually helping others that are wanting to leave early to stay in the program so that they can get help. So even at a later stage in life, no matter your age, there is a potential of change, but you need to make the decision on yourself. You need to, unfortunately, if you want, a lesson I'll never forget is, if you don't want to hear, you will feel.
Yeah.
If you aren't going to listen to what other people are saying, advising on what they've gone through, and you seeing what other people have gone through because of the lifestyle they chose or the way that they live in their life, if that is not going to help you to change, the only way you're going to change is by you going through a deep dark hole and struggling. Then it will be evident that your way of life, the way you treat people, the way you act in certain situations, is just going to put you in a deeper hole. You have to make that conscious decision yourself. I want to be better, I will be better, and work on yourself, then you can change. But those that are stuck in the ways that are well off, they have the money, they've got the career, it's very difficult and near impossible for them to change because they've got the resources to sustain them the way they're going. If they don't go through that dark patch of that mud and shit, they won't change.
What do you think, Spudame?
I think everyone has potential to become anything, or they can change their ways. It's just like JP is saying, it has to be a decision that is genuine, and I think it also has a lot to do with discovering, or maybe it needs to be purpose driven, you know, because like he's saying, if there's no motivation to redirect your life, you won't ever redirect your life. Some people need to fall down on their faces flat and be embarrassed in front of the world to actually take that conscious decision to say, you know what, I need to start leading a better life, right? And I think there is potential for each and every person to change, but it's a desire to change that needs to be there, and it's the dedication, you know, that needs to be there, because, and then also you need to be committed to something. You need to commit to a change and realize that, you know what, this is not an easy road. I need to stick it out. If I start this challenge or I start this journey, I need to actually dig in, roll my sleeves, and just go, you know, because if, and also obviously there needs to be an incentive. So for other people, the incentive is, even if I don't have money, but I need to change other people's perception of me, that I'm not that old, drunk, abusive person that I was. Because each and every person, when they look at themselves internally, they know the life that they're supposed to be living. Everyone has that more, because we always want to achieve more, but you just need to know what is your more, right? So if you're a person that lives, that leads a life that, you know, I was not destined for this. I see myself as someone who's supposed to be flying in the stars. That voice will always be there. It will always be there, right? It's just about you recognizing that voice and taking on that challenge to change. And then for people with the resources, it's near impossible for them, but it's not impossible, but it's near impossible, because that's why sometimes you find a guy here that a guy just left work one day, he was a CEO, no one knows where he went. Someone says, you won't believe what I saw. I was driving to Cape Town, I saw this guy walking barefoot, and he doesn't know where he's going. He's left all of the material belongings behind. He wants to get as far away from that life as possible, because he's attained all of what he's wanted to attain, but it's not filling that void, because he's not confronting that purpose or whatever. So everyone has the potential to change and realize.
Is that now, because that's what I'm hearing, everybody's got the potential to make that shift. Everybody's got the potential to make of themselves what they can and what they want to, but that gets driven by the purpose. there's got to be a bigger purpose as to why you want to do this. Is that the biggest motivation for people to actually start making change?
I don't know if it's purpose driven. It has to be desire driven.
There's a desire towards what? Like, what are you desiring? Desire has an attachment to something.
Yeah.
Right? So what would the desire be?
So each person will be different. Some people desire to be a multimillionaire because they want the status. So they can work, they'll probably work towards it. Other people just want to be happy. They want a good home, they'll literally make ends meet, just have enough money, but they'll be in a happy home with a happy wife or partner, happy kids. That's their desire. Everyone's desire will be different, but you need to have the desire, because the desire will help you to work towards it. A dream or a goal, or the word that you used, purpose. You can feel like you have a purpose to do something, but it's not going to drive you to do it.
Why not?
If you think of someone that's grown up with everything, they ask their parents, I want a dog. The next day they got the dog. I want a car. Next day they got the car.
Yeah.
They always get things, so they will always have that feeling of, I deserve all this. I deserve to have the fancy car. I deserve to get that. But there's no desire to work towards it. There's no drive inside of them, and that drive can only come from desire, because you know what it means, because it's got value, so you'll work towards it. But if you just feel you deserve something because you came from this certain location, so you deserve to have this. You went to that school, so you deserve this. You played for this team, so you deserve this.
Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am?
Do you know who my dad is?
Do you understand? So they've got that imagery of they deserve, and they have the purpose, or their purpose in life is to take over my dad's company. Dad passes on, the will says, my son will take over. How many of those companies actually succeed?
Most of them, they turn them into shitholes.
Of course.
There's no desire. They don't value what that company is. They don't value anything in, so they have no drive to keep it and sustain it and grow it.
I think how I would attach desire to purpose, because I identified it as someone needs to find a purpose. I think, like you said, that you need to find something, and then there must be a drive or some sort to actually drive you as a vehicle to get to where you're going. Because if you're saying someone's purpose is to become a millionaire, I think that's a destination, because once they get there, they need to discover something new, that, okay, I've gotten here, I need to shift now. Maybe I want to design pink cars for everyone to drive. They'll make it their mission to come up with that. But I think purpose is a journey where you can't actually get to the top of the mountain and put a flag to say I have achieved it, because purpose needs tweaks in between, right? You're going to where you're going, you're achieving what you need to be achieving, you're getting people along the way, and it's not about you. Purpose is not about you. Purpose teaches you to be selfless. It's you volunteering yourself, or you are rendering yourself for a bigger change and a positive outcome that may not necessarily benefit you personally, but it makes a huge positive difference around you and where you're going, because you are actually fighting for something bigger than you. It's not about you. So I think for me, how I would attach purpose to desire, you must have a desire to continue driving what you are driving, like your purpose was driving. Because if it's only about you, you will be demotivated somewhere. But if it's about something bigger than you, then there are people who are joining and helping you, propelling you forward in between. And the direction changes. One day you guys are going left, and then you get to the left, you achieve what needs to be achieved on the left. You bring the people from the left. You're trying now to go down, because now the circumstances dictate that you need to be going down. And so it's a never ending. But I think what's important is, what is it that is positive that it's doing wherever it's going. You know.
So how I look at it, James, right, is that we all get born into this world, right? And you've got to justify your existence. I don't care who you are, I don't care how you do it. But in every single human being that exists in the world has to justify their existence. And the people that feel more fulfilled are those individuals that have figured out or have come to a sense of peace and acceptance of, why am I here? All right? This is the reason why I'm here. I'm justifying why I exist here. I'm here for 80, 90 years, however long you live, and I'm not going to exist. I wasn't here a billion years ago. I exist for 90, and then I'm not here another billion years ago, going forward. So I've got to justify why I'm here. And whilst you exist, invariably you're going to experience a lot of hardship, struggles, etc., and you're going to get cuts and bruises. That's just what it is, just for the mere fact that you're engaging with the world, right? Now, there's got to be some justification of why you voluntarily go into a space where you know for a fact is going to keep hurting. Like you've got to have a reason why it's okay for you to keep going there, knowing very well it's going to be heavy, knowing very well it's going to be difficult. Now, if you don't have a solid reason behind that, what pushes you to continue striving through it, right? And because, well, that's the first question, right? What pushes you to continue moving through that strife if you don't know what the reason is? And if you don't know what the reason is and you engage the strife, like I think Smudaman also mentioned, and you also mentioned earlier on, is that now it's too tough. Then you're going to ask, what the hell for? Why should I? Yes, I can see everybody else moving, whatever, but why should I? But unfortunately, life doesn't give you a break on, you've got to move. So when you're sitting and not making any efforts to move, there's consistently going to be a demand by life to keep moving. Now you're going to have to find a way to deal with the fact that something is pushing you to move. So we're all going to find a way to respond to that. Some people try and find ways to shut that feeling down, to shut that voice down, to fulfill that in a different way, right? But at some point in time, everybody's gonna have to account to the fact that I'm here and what am I doing here? And a lot of individuals that get to feel fulfilled are those that have identified what their purpose is here. And then every time you move, you're moving towards that purpose. It'll look differently, right? Let's say, for instance, we all have an example. We all have somewhat of a purpose for growth and development. You do it through coaching. Smudaman will do it through lecturing. I will do it through preaching or whatever that is, right? So we'll all have these different ways of how it looks like. It will take different shapes and forms, but we understand that we are brought here and we've got to enact something that's valuable. And the more fulfilling it is, the better. The more meaningful it is, the better. And the only way you can experience that is if you accept responsibility for something external to yourself that contributes to the community positively. That's the only way it has meaning. That's the only way it becomes fulfilling, right? Because you get to see it happen and find, oh, there's an impact I just made there that shifts something outside of me. And there's a great benefit to that. I know when you say, Spudam, and some of these things don't have a benefit to you, it's just to the community. But that feeling of, it justifies why I had to struggle so much. People don't know how to move past difficulty or strife if they haven't found that meaning behind it. People that struggle on a day-to-day, if you can't explain why you had to go through that, it's very difficult for you to move past it. It makes it difficult for you to integrate it, right? So it seems the conversation we're having is that from the start up until even now, that we as men have to have a lot of conversations around what is value.
Yep.
We have to have conversations around what does that look like, and not just value. That's also just been constructed, Jerry. You know, like it's value that contributes outside of you and has fruitful results that's external to you. Not value that contributes towards yourself. I just bought a car. I'm the top dog. That's for you, right? But what is it that you can contribute external to you that moves society, right? What impact can you make? So it sounds like we're saying we need to have more conversations around what value is, and whatever we come to a conclusion, that value needs to be built inwardly.
Yes.
Does that sound fair?
It does sound fair, and I agree with that 100% in the sense that a lot of people do not understand the importance of integrity because it comes hand in hand with value, because when you're a person of integrity, how you live your life has positive and negative results on different people. If you are a person that is always helpful and you are a selfless being, right? That creates a lot of value also, in the sense that through how you live your life, you can create something very positive in other people's lives that are yearning to actually believe that there are people who are honest and that are full of integrity in life, you know, because you don't know the people you meet, what circumstances they are coming from, what kind of hope that they are looking just to latch on, just to get that one belief that there can actually be something positive out of life. And you might be that person. So it's very important for me to be very honest and upright about your life and be a person of integrity. If you say I can just make an example. In my previous job, right, they knew what kind of person I was, and how I knew I was doing something right is if there were to be a conversation and you're not around and your name pops up attached to a certain behavior, and more than 5 people say, I know this person would never agree to this, and you're not
there.
They say, I know this person would never agree to this kind of action or behavior. Just know that there's something right that you do, because they know what values you stand for. You are not shy about your values. So it's something that's very important, that even in your absence, there are certain things that people know that you'll never agree to.
That's what it sounds like when you mention this voice. It seems like you acting in a way that shows integrity, that somebody else who's looking for, I need a confirmation if this is the way to go. Smooth moves in a certain way, JP moves in a certain way. Yeah, man, this is the way. Let me follow suit. So we need to lead in that way.
Yes, I think also what we need to touch on is the importance of your roots. For example, I come from a village. So in the village that I grew up in, there was a difference between a right and a wrong, right? And there was almost evidence of, if you choose to live this life, you'll end up on the wrong side of progress.
And there's confirmation.
And exactly. And there are certain people that have always lived in the village, and then they participated in in things that they were not supposed to participate in for their ages and all of that.
Yeah.
As a consequence of that,
Yeah.
they never, I wouldn't want to be harsh and say they never amounted to anything, but they got left behind by their peers. And when they were always used as bad examples, whenever they wanted to make an example of something good, they would tell you do the opposite of what these guys did. Because if you engage in these activities at this age, they will prohibit you from realizing your potential and actually achieving things that are bigger than what you've ever imagined, right? So I think it's very important also now where we are, because we exist now in environments where there's a lot of freedom. A guy can do a behavior that was almost frowned upon when we were growing up, but because they've got their own resources, it's free for all. You can do anything you want, and that is not a very good example, especially for if you want to have or if you've got concerns of where the younger generation ought to go, right? So there needs to be this exemplary behavior of right and wrong. What is it that we as men, or actually narrow it down as what is it that me as Usimulele can do to contribute to a better society? And through my actions, rather, not just preaching about I love everyone. How am I living?
It's what you highlighted, James, as well. It's got to model it. Like, the conversation has to be there, but it has to be attached to a particular action, right? Even in those situations where mom and dad are fighting about something that we've seen what happens, we see how mom and dad came together and had a proper discussion after the fight, and we were brought in to kind of get a good sense of this is what's going on, this is how so it needs to be attached to an action as well. That sounds like it correlates. Nice. So.
Oh, and also just touching on what JP had mentioned, that in those families, it's not like parents don't quarrel, they do quarrel. But the lesson you take out of it is when either the father or the mother, they sit down, because you argued and they could hear. And then they sit down, they actually work things out, and the importance, and you hear the importance of redressing, where the one parent said, you know what, I actually got it wrong. I am sorry that I approached you in this manner because it actually made the situation worse. So I apologize for my approach. And the other person says, you know what, I understand where you're coming from. I am very happy that you apologized. And I also apologize the way I reacted to how you approached me, because it made the situation worse. So as a child sitting, you can actually hear the importance of redressing and owning up and taking accountability.
Yeah, without feeling like you're about to lose yourself in that space, right? Because there's a vulnerability around accepting the fact that you had limitations, and you had hit them in that moment. Whether it's from an emotional perspective where you've got a limitation, you couldn't understand what was going on, you lashed out, and there was a big quarrel. You realized later that hey, I fell short there. But having to be able to come back and say, I moved in a way that wasn't maybe the way I would have liked to move, and apologize for that. There is a vulnerability around having to step into that. But if you haven't built enough value internally to be comfortable enough to know I can do this and not feel like I'm losing a part of myself, but I'm building on top of what I've already had, because now I have less chances of repeating that, because there was an acknowledgement of the fact that I had a limitation around it. So it falls part of the same chat we have, that if you can build as much substantial value internally, these are things that become byproducts.
It's easier, because if you can learn and see the modeling of it's okay to be not okay, and it's okay to be wrong.
Yes.
A lot of people can't handle that they are wrong, even though they know they're wrong, but they will still fight their point, because at the time they saw themselves right, and they'll always argue because they don't know, or they don't feel comfortable. Let's put it that way, they don't feel comfortable to be wrong. or to have other people let them know that they're wrong. If you aren't comfortable with yourself of knowing I'm not always going to be right, I don't know everything, I will be corrected, whether it be through an action or a discussion or whatever, it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay because I learn from it. I will grow, and as you said, you won't repeat it because the acknowledgement is there. But they need to be comfortable with having that and being able to accept that they were wrong.
I also think I think it's an ego thing also, right? Because as a person, right, we've got different perspectives. And why I say it's an ego thing, you know, when there's a subject and it's being discussed, and then you've got your perspective, and then JP comes up with what is perceived as his facts. And facts, there's only one fact. So maybe JP misinterpreted what he's trying to tell you. He only heard a part of it, and then you've got maybe the full scope of it, and you say, "No, JP,
that's actually not what it is.
It's not true."
Out of context.
And then JP feeling embarrassed that he feels like he's been taken on in front of everyone, whereas he could actually look at it as an opportunity to learn. Because I live by something that says, I'd rather be a fool for 5 minutes and not know and be corrected than to go around
being a fool your whole life.
Being a fool your whole life because you missed on that opportunity to be a fool just for 5 minutes. For Brian to say, you know what, JP, actually, this is what how it is. This is the full scope of it. And then he gives you context, and then now you understand. Because of what he's done and the opportunity that he's afforded you, you will always remember it exactly how he described it to you. So in another conversation, you can go in and to say, I actually thought it's what you're saying it was, until I found someone who was more learned on that subject, and he actually described it as this, right? Now, that is also helping the next person, who also is willing to be a fool just for 5 minutes to learn. So ego can be very dangerous in the sense that it's just about me. I'm not willing to let in anything he says. How dare he reduce me in front of these people? Whatever he's saying, I'm only betting sixes. I'm not. And then,
yeah, and that feeling almost, it's very protective, isn't it? Of that fragile ego. Like if you come at me with the facts of what I don't know about, but I presume to know about, and you come with your facts that are very clear and it's very substantiated and all of that, and it's very clear in the whole room that, hey, my facts aren't really it. You want to respond to that. So generally when that happens, it's almost like it's that protective side of it. Like there's no freaking way I'm about to be seen in that way. There's no bloody way, because it's not nice to sit and accept the fact that, listen, you don't know it.
Yeah.
As we came up with, the reason I'm laughing is because there's this friend of mine, his name is McCoy.
Yeah.
So I'm a car enthusiast. But now I met this guy, McCoy, who knows more about cars than I know, because I know the different cars, different engines, and McCoy, he will know. It's like looking at that laptop. A person will say, okay, this is a game. Okay, for example, let's say you had a gamer's laptop or a programmer. They'll say, this is a laptop for developers, and the RAM is this and this and this. Now you get someone who tells you why this laptop is good and why it's good for developers and why this laptop for developers is not good for this and this and this. So that guy, he once chowed me in an argument about cars. And you know when someone chows you to a point where you can't even argue, because if you argue, you look like a fool. And
it's been building up already. You've been building up to be a fool already, you see.
So this guy, he chowed me in an argument where we were debating about a certain car
Yeah.
and a certain model of this car. And now, from the speed of the car to the kilowatts, we were neck and neck. But now there are those certain things about cars, like is it the front wheel drive and he told me where I was resisting, and then we went on to Auto Trader, and everything that he said was right, and everything that I said was wrong. Now I had to own up now. Being this guy known to be an enthusiast, and he knows his cars, and this guy's like, you can't ever argue about cars with me and my brother. We know our cars. And from that day, I was like, you know what? It's actually, it's not a bad thing to actually not know everything about everything. You must just accept that there will be other people that will know things more than you, even the subject that you think you are the best in. There's someone who is more passionate about it more than you. So I actually sat down with this guy, and he decolonized my brain and he reprogrammed me.
That's great, because that's good. I mean, I think that's a very positive experience of being around men as a man. Is because one, we have a very competitive nature. That's just part of who we are, right? And I'm pretty sure in that conversation, we've known you to be a car enthusiast. JP comes through and shows you, hey boy, you're a child. I'm pretty sure
not just a child. You are in grade R, I'm in matric, and I will tell you any day. Bring any car, any event, I will tell you.
Now I'm pretty sure sitting there knowing you, I'm gonna be pouring fuel to the fire to say, you that seemed to be so top dog 2 weeks ago, now you're gonna act like any conversation now I'm gonna have with you going forward. I will always interpret you as, "Hi boy, you don't. I'm gonna call that guy again."
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Exactly.
To say, "Hey, chief, this guy told us this car has this much power, and can you confirm that?" And this guy will say, no, he was correct. And sometimes just to spite you, will say, I was lying. And then you laugh at him.
Exactly.
And you won't say no, so you'll just add the fuel to the fire and then leave.
And then leave it like that. But the point there is that you stand to be in a space where you get to learn to be better at what you're doing or what you know. Because you kind of surrounded yourself with gentlemen that will show you that, listen, this is a short fall. Pick it up. Decolonize your mind and learn a little bit more about cars, because you don't know as much as you claim to have. And maybe you had your own substance, but it only ends at a certain level. And because you surround yourself with people that are gonna give you that feedback that, "Hey boy, he showed you fame, calm down, you're gonna have to find yourself you're gonna move into a space where you can actually develop yourself." So we need men around men more often.
But that then also if you are prideful, will force you to learn more.
Yeah, you will. Definitely
So
will.
being slightly prideful can help you, because that will force you to develop and to continue learning and to develop yourself and to be better. But then you gotta also make sure that it's a fine line of not being too prideful.
Exactly. So
you need to have a sense of pride in yourself to hold yourself to that high standard, but never get to a point where you know everything. Never get to the point of, I've read enough books on the subject, I now know.
Nobody can tell me anything about
They're
it.
always writing new books. They're always discovering new things, discovering new methods, new calculations to make things better, easier, and more efficient. In life, you will never stop learning. Never settle for what you know as it. You have to put yourself out there and continue to grow and develop yourself.
Those books are what challenged me, because I used to buy every Auto Trader, every car magazine. This guy was not only buying those magazines, he was watching Car Talk, Buyer's Guide, all of these things. And what's this other thing? Something Auto, is it Grand? But when those guys...
those three gents,
when they left,
British folks.
When they left to Kyle, what's this show?
It was BBC. I also just
and Car Talk, I think. They
They
left,
opened
yeah.
their own show.
And
Yeah,
they
it's now
started
on
their own
Prime.
show.
Actually, I think it's on Amazon Prime. I just forgot the name of it. With
think it was
Jeremy Clarkson.
Grand Tour or something.
Yeah, something like that.
So this guy was consuming all of this knowledge. And then there were also other things. He would attend Kai events, and that's when I started attending Kai events. And he introduced me to Kai events. He would take me to these shows. I remember this one time we drove because the convoy going to the drag race was leaving here from Upper Midrand, just there by Upper Shell.
The VW, yeah.
There's a dealership across the road, or Jeep, and all
Yeah, I
that.
see that.
So that's where we met. And then this event, Kai event, was in Artis. It's myself, my friend, his brother, and his other friends from back home. Imagine a conversation where it's about cars. I said I contributed, I'm sure, about 0.2% between here and Artis, and we drove through Pretoria. And these guys, they are talking about the actual cars that we are driving in and the cars that are driving around us to say, no, this car is this, it's a front wheel drive and it's got so much torque. This one has got stage 2, the engine has been upgraded, and this one, no, you can't upgrade this engine and put APR because I'm thinking there's also something called APR. From that day, I made sure I attended every car show. I watched every documentary there is about cars, about everything, and not to go and argue with this guy, but just to make sure that at least I've got knowledge.
Just to, that part, Budaman, is exactly what JP was mentioning, is that nobody gets to escape that feeling of, man, I don't know. Nobody gets to escape that. You see that feeling of like, as the way you're explaining, it feels like an internal embarrassment, like you have your own internal dialogue of, I didn't even know there were certain parts in the car, I didn't even know there were certain systems in the car, and I thought you have that internal, so no one ever gets to escape that. But if your response would be, I don't want to feel like this, but I need to, for me not to feel like this, I need to go beef up on the information, beef up on the technique, beef up on the skill. That's a more positive way of engaging with it, but nobody escapes that feeling.
I often come across a lot of people, especially because of the industry I'm in. It's a very big industry, but not a lot of people know about it, and also what's in the industry until you sit down with someone and then they actually educate you on what goes on, what's this, how does this work, and now this guy once went to an event, a birthday dinner of a friend, right? And this guy is in finance. And with me, I'm very careful about subjects that I participate in and the extent that I participate in, you know, because I'm often clued up on a lot of subjects. But I will never come and challenge you on psychology. I don't do psychology on a day-to-day basis. The part of psychology I know about is stuff that I discuss with you, right? And also on books that I read or on certain things that I watch that I find very interesting, right? But it's not something that I would go and argue with someone who's in your field and argue, just argue to say, this will never happen, or you are talking nonsense. I will never. I'm very careful about arguing with people within their respective fields. So we're sitting there and they're talking about finance, because most of these guys are in finance, corporate, and they're talking. So I'm just contributing where I need to contribute. And obviously the guys keep checking, hey Chief, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, but I'm just listening because you are talking about your environment, right? Which I know about, but to a very limited extent, you know. So it's an opportunity for me to learn, right? And then now they ask what I do, so I explain. This guy now is disagreeing with what I'm saying and the processes of what I do on a day-to-day basis and the outcomes of. So, but I had been watching this guy because when he was the loudest, if you say, Chief, you know what I did last year, December? What did you do? No, we went to Cape Town and went to this vineyard. You will say, Chief, I've been to a vineyard in Italy. They have the best wine. He always has to be the last person to say, what I did was much better than what you did. It's like, you haven't experienced anything, Chief. On your next trip, go to Cape Town, but go to this guy's farm. He's got a vineyard. Go there. He's got... So I'm looking at this guy. And I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, why does this guy feel the need? Or what could be pressuring this guy to behave in this way? Because if JP, I would come and challenge you on what you do on a day-to-day basis. And what you're challenging me on is not also something that you're experiencing. You're saying, I know, maybe my uncle has worked for this company and he said this thing works like this. What you're saying, Chief, it doesn't add up. So I'm asking, did you experience this firsthand or your uncle? No.
Check your source, that's essentially what you're saying.
So no, this guy is...
Not even check your source, sorry to interrupt, but it's more of he doesn't have a sense of worth. So he's got to outshine everyone else. He's got to look to draw the attention to him because he doesn't get attention anywhere else. He might be big, he might have the money, he might have the status, but internally he doesn't feel valued. And so he's got to draw that attention. So it doesn't matter what, like you say, it doesn't matter what your field is. I will argue because I want people to keep looking at me. I want them to always say, oh, why do you say this? He wants to be center of attention because of that small, not small personality, the
fragile ego?
Not even fragile ego, it's he feels small because he doesn't know, but he wants to feel like he knows. In a sense, it's not exactly that. My mind just went blank at the moment on what I wanted to wrap it up with, because it's that sense of inferiority
complex.
It's like they say with scrum halves, they're always the smallest on the field but the loudest mouths because they want to be seen, because everyone always overshadows them.
Now, so I get you, gents. It seems though like we might actually be underplaying the impact of that feeling you sat with when you were in the car with this gents. And you're feeling like, I don't have anything to contribute here because all of these people around me know a heck of a lot more and I don't know what they're talking about in this space. That feeling, obviously it will look different in all different contexts, but there's that feeling of not knowing in that moment, that feeling of not being able to contribute in that moment, that feeling of the perspective you have that you know you're not having a value contributing in that moment. That feeling, that sucky feeling, we might possibly be underestimating how much of an influence it has on a lot of us, and in terms of how we respond to the demands that come in us, because it's that feeling that gets that dude doing that. That's what drives that dude to suddenly wanna fill up the whole room, because he can't sit with that feeling of this moment passed, I didn't have anything to say, fine, let's move on. All right, but he can't get away from that, and it seems like that responding to that feeling seems to be influencing a lot of how we see people act.
And what is it about that feeling that pressures people so much into how can I phrase this? Because obviously this feeling, it leaves people feeling somehow. Right?
Somehow negative.
Whether somehow negative or small, but there's something
that feeling that
deeper that is attached to that feeling. And some people are able to suppress it and rather keep quiet, but majority will either act out in rebellion or something. But what is it about that feeling?
So, Spuda, man, Do you wanna go, James? Do you wanna take a stab? And I wanna hear what you think, what the feeling is as well. Because it is everybody has it. I don't care who you are, everybody has it, and it's very, very, very strong. And it's a good question to ask, like, what is it? Because I think a lot of folks, a lot of gentlemen struggle with how to respond to that.
I think I don't know a lot about it, but I would say it's emotional. If you don't know how to handle sadness as an emotion, you might struggle to understand and handle happiness.
Explain.
If you don't know anything's good, if you don't know anything's bad.
Fair.
So if you cannot handle a certain emotion, it's going to limit you on how you handle other emotions, whether it be good or bad.
I like that.
So if you are unable to handle criticism, someone says you're wrong, don't do it that way, do it this way, it's more efficient, it's more productive, it's better, and things like that. If you can't handle that, when in a discussion about work or cars or sports, you couldn't handle that. So now when someone else is telling you you're wrong, or this team is better because of the style of play, or because of the coach or the manager or the players, and it's not your team, you're not going to handle that well, because it's an emotional reaction, it's an emotional response, and that will then start limiting you on other things.
Makes sense.
I use that as an analogy because of physical limitations that I went through all my different accidents and all of that, where I literally started realizing that before accident number 3 or 4, I used to be so active. I used to take every single risk that there was without even thinking about it. I knew it was a risk, but I did it anyway because I was seeking that thrill.
And it never occurred to you that anything bad would happen to you. It can happen to other people, as risky as it is, but I'll just see.
You do it, and then after accident number 3 and 4 and 5, I caught myself doing nothing. Stopped running, stopped climbing, stopped doing things that are safe and doable, but I stopped doing it because what if this happens? No, I don't want to risk it anymore. And my space of enjoyment and comfort became less and less. So much to the point where I never left the house. And it didn't bother me because of being an introvert. I didn't really need to. I was comfortable with it. But there was a point where I was like, but I actually enjoyed that. Why am I not running? Why am I not competing? Why am I not doing all these other things where I used to be able to? I'm able to walk, I'm able to do it, but why am I not doing it anymore? So even though I'm never really fully healed, but I'm able to do it, but I don't do it because of I was unable at that stage, and then it limited me on doing other things. And through a process of other things that I've gone through, I realized that limiting yourself in one aspect will spill over into other aspects of your life. So in order for you to stop limiting yourself, you gotta face your fear. You gotta do the thing that puts you in that mind space. So it got me to the point of, right, I need to get back on a motorbike. Just sitting on the motorbike with the stand on the ground, not even putting the key in the ignition.
Just sitting on it.
Just sitting on it, my body was shaking for about 15-20 minutes.
Why? Why was it shaking?
My mind kept on replaying all the accidents and all the injuries that I sustained, playing in that I'm gonna get it again. 15 to 20 minutes of not even being able to move it from the stand upright, put in the key, my body was shaking. Not just hands, I mean body was shaking. It took me just over an hour to start the ignition. Again, it wasn't just me, my mate that whose bike it was holding the bike the whole time. So I wasn't even supporting my own self. But it took me over an hour just to turn the ignition on. And after, literally it took the whole day, I think we did about a 20-30 minute drive. But I eventually got there. And after that, I started doing everything else that I enjoyed. And life became so much better and easier. And it was easier to take the same risks that I used to. Even knowing that I had an injury, I was unable to do 1, 2, 3, but I take calculated risks that now because of this limitation of my leg, I can't do a certain move. I learned how to do it in a different way. So in doing that, I learned through emotional distress or emotional baggage or whatever, I attached that emotion to that activity, which overspilled into other activities and other parts of my life. So that's why I say that point of, if the person is unable to handle that emotional part in one aspect, whether it be happiness, sadness, whatever, it's going to limit them to fully enjoy the good emotions, or to handle the sadness emotions, because they were unable to handle a different emotion, completely different, not even relevant to the situation or whatever, but it overspilled into other aspects of their life because of the emotional connotations of emotions. I can't see it, I can't touch it, I can't smell it, but it's inside and it's doing something, and that frustrates people. Because I know some people, they say, if I can't build it, I will build it. Why? It can't talk to me, it can't argue with me. I will build it, or I will fix it, or I will break it, because it's an inanimate object. So when it comes to emotions, again, they can't see it, they can't feel it, they can't touch it, they can't smell it, and they don't know how to express it or handle it, and it spills over into everything else.
As JP, you've described this thing in such a way that even the blind man, if I may use Lil Wayne's line, could look at you and see the truth with what you eat. Out of all the languages you could have chosen to speak, you chose to speak facts, right? Because Brian would know there's a guy that I'm very fond of his mind, Kenny Evans. And what you're saying now is actually what he often likes to speak about, that the mind, because he really focuses on the mind, like the mental side of it, saying that your mind will be your biggest enemy when you allow it to, especially if it's experienced a certain trauma. When it needs to take a risk, it takes that trauma and plays it in HD in front of you, in repeat, to get you to back down from what you're trying to do as much as possible. He's saying, but if you could only get ahead of that and use that fear actually to propel you forward, you will start to experience the beauty of life again. And he says that's why you get a lot of people. If a sports person is injured, the importance of rehab is not only about fixing maybe the knee, the ACL. It's getting into the mind to get the person to believe that I can actually run faster, not as fast as I used to, faster, you know. And he says now this person has to get over the disappointment the first time that they are done with maybe the rehab was taking part in the swimming pool. Now this person has to actually take the first stride, and they realize in their mind they can sprint, but the body can only jog. And then this person moves from jogging to actually being able to run at 50%. And then he says when they get to 75%, it's very easy to get from 75% to back to 0 because this person now is actually scared because physically they're feeling like I can't push myself beyond this mental block, right? And then now this person, all of the work that was done by the physios to get this person physically ready, now no amount of doctor can actually get into this person's brain to tell this brain, unlock yourself, it's safe now. It's safe now. So he's saying that is the biggest thing. So you've just reminded me of that guy with how you described it. Very good analogy with how you described it. And we can take that into our lives that we live every day. If there's something wrong in your life and you allow it to spill over, it percolates into bigger things, bigger areas of your life, which one day you'll sit and not understand why this thing is not working and this one is not working, only to find out that the source there is not addressed.
So build a relationship with that dark part, with that scary part. Go spend some time there.
Yeah.
Turn into David Goggins. David Goggins.
All right, gentlemen. What did we say today in closing? What did
So much.
yeah, said so much, but maybe one thing, Spiderman, that that you feel we spoke about today?
What we spoke about, what I could take out, the most important thing for me, everything was important, but if I could just highlight what JP just touched on, is that getting over the mental block and facing your fear, or rather using your fear as the motivation to actually get whatever you need to get done, so that if you clean up that department, it also, in the same way that it can be negative to other departments, it can also spread and be positive, and it get you excited about life, waking up and doing these things that always brought you joy. I think it's just if I could give it a word, I would say overcoming.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think for me as well, it's more of I don't think anybody's immune to that feeling, that feeling you were describing, Japes, and that feeling that Spiderman was highlighting, that feeling of inferiority, however it looks like for everybody. Nobody gets to escape that. CEOs to school kids, nobody gets to escape that, but having a healthy relationship with it can propel you further, rather than pulling yourself back or in more destructive ways. So I think I'm taking that from a lot of the important things we discussed.
Now on my side, I would say get introspection on yourself. Know yourself, know your self-worth, see where you're short and build on it. But also in that introspection, see what you're good at and carry on with it. Help others in what you're good at to help them realize their own self-worth.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much. It's been a nice chat. It's been a very very fruitful chat, and I'm hoping that it sparks a lot of other internal dialogues or internal conversations with a lot of individuals out there, particularly men. It's been great.